Okay, guys, Nicholas Rosenberg here, Punching Back Podcast. We're here at Cult Media Studio, downtown Arts District. Look who pulled up today, Mr. Checkpoint. It's a pleasure to have you, Senate. Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here. Amazing space, studio. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to start off with 2017 at the Soho House when we met.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, you reached out and you recommended a book.
Mm-hmm.
It maybe said something else, but what I recall
was... The Activist Handbook.
Exactly. And I think you said you either wanted to give it to me or you recommended it. And then we met up. We found a time and day. We met up at the Soho House.
Right.
And did you give it to me?
I ordered it and I wanted you to have it.
Right.
Because you're an activist and we don't have the mentors. You have mentors, but I didn't know you had the mentors. So I was trying to mentor.
You did. You've done an amazing.
Yeah, I appreciate that, bro. Much love. Okay. So everyone wants to know how you became Mr. Checkpoint.
Well, I did. I named it myself. No one said you're Mr. Checkpoint.
Right.
As some people are fortunate to get named, right? For whatever it is. For me, Mr. Checkpoint, it was simple. I was living in San Diego, and I noticed a lot of checkpoints around different areas. I went to San Diego State. And so there'd be checkpoints here and there. And I definitely saw them, thought about them. And per our Fourth Amendment right, I felt they were unconstitutional. Mm-hmm. They were wrongful stop and seizures for what? You're just traveling from place to place. And now you're having to answer questions from a cop, right? And they could find reasons to justify it or why it's worth invading your constitutional rights. But in my opinion, I was against it. But it didn't go much further than that until I was watching the news. 10 News segment came out and it said that the checkpoints in Chula Vista and Escondido were targeting Hispanics and that they would tow 40 cars in a night. These weren't done in areas where there would be a nightclub, so no DUI justification. There'd be 0 DUI arrests. I went to these checkpoints in these areas and yeah, there is no bars, there is no clubs. It's clear what's going on. They're using something like a DUI checkpoint to target people, to tow the vehicles. And then they had a contract with the tow truck company and was making extra money off of it. So once I saw that, I was like, this is outrageous. I started learning about checkpoints, but I also started instantly sharing information about them under the name Mr. Checkpoint on Twitter at the time.
One of our early texts was you were posting Checkpoint at Figueroa and Alameda, something like that. And I texted you back, is this targeted towards brown people, ... I
think unfortunately, almost all the laws and the policing and things do target minorities. There might be instances where it's used against someone else or we go, oh, wow. But typically, all of these systems are used against minorities, Black, brown people, marginalized communities, et cetera.
Yeah. So growing up, were there any lawyers in the family?
Yeah. My dad, my grandpa was a lawyer as well. And then he passed when I was younger. My dad and him went to law school together. They both passed the bar together and then opened up a practice. And I think in the beginning, they kind of did nearly everything or just, whatever they could and learned. And then eventually my dad focused on Social Security Disability, SSI. So yeah, I grew up, sleeping in the courthouse rooms, listening to my dad argue why the person's entitled to such benefits because their lack of ability to work and whatnot. And kind of just constantly advocating in that way. He had the Los Angeles County contract for 13 years. So he represented over 50,000 people in that time in Los Angeles for their SSI, SSDI. And yeah, it inspired me certainly to advocate.
Any other lawyers in the family?
Yeah, my brother, his wife.
Okay.
So yeah, it's.
And so what was that like growing up with your dad in court?
I think it was. I didn't know what like a privilege it was to just watch him and see the work he did. I really now like feel such value from being able to hear just someone, not just with us. I mean, with what he did in the practice. Of course, it's arguing right why, like I said, the person should get it, but he really. There's some like he really is a lawyer in all the sense. And I don't know, I met other lawyers who are like specific to what they do. And it's like kind of once they're done, it's over. But my dad's just the essence is so strong. And so it would be situations where I'd buy something. An example was a laptop, and it had all of these features that it said it would have, from A to Z and the best things, whatever. And it turns out it didn't work. It didn't function like it said. It didn't do the things it said. And so I spent a lot of time trying to get it fixed, calling Compaq, actually, that was the company. And sure enough, he's like, you know what, you've done enough. And he taught me about small claims court. And at like 14 years old, I was in small claims court for a couple $1,000 laptop. And sure enough, I won. They didn't show. So I got to like somehow keep the laptop, got all the money for it. And I think that was one of the many examples of having another time was once I was in a Chuck E. Cheese and parents dropped us off. We were like, I've never shared this story, by the way, but we were like 14 years old. Parents drop us off at Chuck E. Cheese. We're having a good time. The soda is out on the machine. So I go to the woman, hey, the soda, something's off with it. She's like, where are your parents? Oh, they dropped us off. Oh, they need to come right away. Well, I know that's not possible. I know the parents dropped us off because they have something to do. This was buying time. Point is, they ended up saying like, we're going to call the cops if they don't come. I said, please do. And I remember like I tell my dad this story the next day and he's like, what? This all happened? They threatened you, the cops? We went there and he talked to the management. He was like, you can't threaten kids if they're dropped off by their parents with cops. You're lucky my son like handled this correctly, but like, I ended up getting like a bunch of free stuff from them and things. So it was always like that,
Right.
It was always like, it's not just enough that something was done wrong. It's like there's accountability. And he really taught me that in all these different instances.
Do you use the phrase remedy?
I know it, but I don't use it often.
Okay. Because in the law, we often talk about here's an injury, here's harm, here's a damage. But then you say, what's the remedy?
Yeah, he was looking for the remedy, especially when it involved his son,
Yeah.
And I picked up on that, and I appreciate that. And I think I've tried to use Mr. Checkpoint to share that feeling that I thought was like, to be honest, growing up, I would have thought everybody had this, like learned this, thought this. It wasn't until a specific situation where close friend was the passenger of a vehicle. So it was two friends. One's a white Jewish kid and a black friend in the passenger. White Jewish kid took out his parents' car. They were under 16. LAPD pulls him over. What happens? The white Jewish kid who took out his parents' car, who actually committed the crime, right? Gets picked up by his parents. They drive the car home. My friend, the passenger, goes to jail, ends up having to do community service for this. And I remember I say, like, what did your dad say about this, knowing what I'm thinking what my dad would say? He goes, my dad said, I'm lucky that's all that happened. And so I think that was a wake-up call. And like the work I do now, I think speaks to that moment and those issues that so many face.
Can I ask, what was he charged with and what did he plead to? Because he's a passenger.
I'd have to call him and ask, but literally I checked on this because it's as unbelievable as you're saying. He did community. He actually had to do community service. It wasn't like just picked up and like wait for dad. No, it was something. I'll find out.
Well, it might be accessory. I don't know, but describe your activism. Do you use the word activist, community organizer, advocate?
Yeah, I think advocate is like I think about that often. I think advocate might be the most well, I could be all those at different times, but like if I'm holding a sign and I'm, let's say, an activist, when I hear activist, I kind of think like holding a sign, megaphone, getting the word out. It's not, it's because of a issue. It's because I'm advocating for some, ultimately, whatever it is some issue that's affecting not just the person or the family or the people, but way more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think those are the kind of issues where I've tried to advocate for. And sometimes it makes me be an activist with the megaphone and a sign. Sometimes it makes me more of an organizer. Like, how do I get that foundation? How do I connect these two people? How do I, strategize for what's in the best interest of the people impacted by the issue?
Right. Now, you and I've done some stuff together.
Yes.
We've done getting your phone back. We've done unboxing your phone. Can you describe what you've done with Attorney Rosenberg?
Yeah. It's like, I'm so fortunate to know you.
Thank
for
you,
you to be
brother.
my mentor and friend. Uh, and when in need of, in these legal situations, which no one ever wants to be in. So it's not like it's unfortunate, but you've been there. In some of the situations, yeah, I think the first, if I'm not mistaken, was with the LA sheriffs.
Mm-hmm.
If people recall, there was days of protest. It was after a Dijon Kizzy was killed. I believe he was on the bike. And so yeah, there was tons of protests. I was at one of them, and that's when the officers say you have to leave. They're behind the car. He says I failed his attitude test, right? Because I didn't say my name, and they kept my phone for. Well, they kept the phone, and they actually kept, if I'm not mistaken, every phone
Mm-hmm.
and device, and actually I think everything, including cars and more, from anyone arrested during these times, during these several weeks, or at least a week. So my phone was in there, and you were able to get the phone back. And that was something where, like I said, there was like 40 people who also had their phones, couldn't get it back. I know what organization was it?
The NLG,
NLG.
National Lawyers Guild.
Yeah, I know they were helping a lot of people. They also were having trouble getting property back. And I think you were one of the first to get at least my phone at the time back. And yeah, we unboxed it. We looked at it. We shared that on YouTube. And it was cool. We had like a former cop tune in, right? And
Yeah.
talk about it.
What was the name of that sergeant?
Who tuned in?
No, the guy who failed the attitude.
Sergeant Brian Moeller.
Yeah, Mueller.
Yeah, he's since, I guess, retired. And this was a guy who was like responsible for training other officers and departments, not just around the country, but internationally, for how to handle, First Amendment things and protest and large crowds. And obviously he didn't conduct himself. I think he failed the attitude test, and I was paid a settlement after that night in jail.
Who was your lawyer for that?
It was BNCL Law.
Okay.
Yeah, law firm. So John Burris, he's on the executive board of AFTP Foundation, which you're a founding board member of. And yeah, his partners, they represented me.
Let's talk about Always for the People, which is also an AFTP. What's your elevator pitch?
AFTP Foundation advocates for victims of systemic injustice. It makes police more transparent and accountable every day. And it is on a mission to make jury duty cool in 2025.
And how about felony murder?
Yeah, so there's victims of felony. There's Lakeith Smith is one of the people who's in a jail cell for the last 9-10 years for a murder he didn't commit in Alabama. So yeah, we advocate for his family. We try to raise awareness about felony murder rule. We just interviewed Halim Flowers, who also did significant time, again, for a murder he didn't commit. And a lot of these are children. I think felony murder rule, some people may be able to find justification just, oh, you're committing a crime, someone dies, I want you charged with it. Like maybe there is a possible way some people can find justification. I don't think it makes sense and is right. However, when it's a child, I don't know the legal definition, but maybe you could help. When you're under 18, you have less responsibility for your actions, right? Than when you're over 18. Isn't when
Well, financially, minors, it's the parents.
even beyond finances, like if you're a child and do something wrong, isn't there some degree your parent could be held responsible
Yeah.
for the child's actions?
If I throw a baseball through my neighbor's window and I'm 12, the neighbor is going to expect Rosenberg to pay for that window.
Right. The parent.
Does that? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what's interesting with felony murder rule is here we are making children accountable for stuff they did not do. And in all other instances, when a children does something, for the most part, a parent holds the responsibility, except for in this archaic, nonsense, ridiculous felony murder law rule. And in Lakeith Smith's case, it's even worse because it's being misapplied. The officer killed the kid. So it's actually not even supposed to be applied in his instance, but this country's been on a mission to lock up Black and brown children. And that's part, I believe, of that mission.
Now, what about the homeless veterans in Westwood?
Yeah, that's a serious issue. I guess, just talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's another initiative.
It is another, okay, yeah, that's true. It's another initiative of AFDP. It's basically, to summarize it, it's in 1888, you had incredibly wealthy and powerful people. So it was like a senator and his family and people who own tons of land, thousands and thousands and thousands of acres from what is now Santa Monica to down to here. All of the land, only a handful of families owned it. And so when you're being taxed on all that undeveloped land in 1887, 1888, well, it's expensive and there's nothing here. It's all dirt. I'd encourage anyone to look at like photos of Los Angeles during that time. And so what this family did in their own interest is donated the land to the federal government through several deeds, multiple families, multiple people, several deeds to the federal government to have a permanent home. Now, at the same time, it was right after the Civil War. You had both sides that fought injured, and they're all American. Well, when you have homeless Americans, it becomes a national security issue. Who wants to go serve their country when you see that? So Abraham Lincoln said, we're going to have an east and a west home for disabled, homeless, volunteer soldiers. And like I said, you had these wealthy people here with the land. They donated to the government, say this is where we should make the home for the veterans that are disabled and unemployed. And that's exactly what happened. They carved out a huge chunk, actually it's over 1,000 acres, which is in now Brentwood, West LA, and also a beachfront property right near the Jonathan Club adjacent and possibly partially part of the Jonathan Club. It's hard to tell. But the point is, land was dedicated, donated to be a permanent home. And, what happened instantly in the donors, what they thought happened. You had thousands of veterans talking, oh my God, there's a home, it's called the Pacific Branch Home. They flocked there and thousands of veterans started living there. There was a post office built. All of Sawtell was built from veterans originally. They owned all the initial shops. They would go to the soldiers' home to get rehabilitated. Then they would go into the economy and create business, wealth, and then they would go re-enter society. And they lived there for free for sacrifice of their service for our country. So yeah, in 2025, Los Angeles is the nation's capital of veteran homelessness. 4,000 to 5,000 veterans at least sleep on the streets every single night. And that property that used to house 4,000 to 5,000 veterans is being utilized for UCLA baseball field. It's being utilized for Brentwood school, private school, $50,000 a year. And this is the kind of crap that we're dealing with on land donated for our veterans.
And is there any relationship with the Homeless Veterans Initiative and Hollywood or the music industry supporters?
Yeah, supporters. I mean, we're so fortunate to have Rihanna follow a bunch of the accounts. You know, she follows Mr. Checkpoint. She follows Always Film the Police. And so, yeah, when I was sharing these initiatives, specifically the veterans, she reached out and said, "How can I help?" I sent her an Amazon wish list. You can actually see an Amazon wish list similar, alwaysforthepeople.com. It'll send you to, like I said, Amazon wish list. You can buy anything off it, and then we distribute it to the veterans. But yeah, she reached out. I sent her that. She bought, I want to say, everything on it, and then filled up a van and showed up. And like the coolest thing is, you know, she spent hours just chatting, listening, talking to these veterans. And then we donated a bunch of stuff. And since she's donated, she's continued to, you know, donate and support. So she's awesome. And also Estevan, he's pulled up and
Shout out to Estevan Oriol.
shout out Estevan. He's pulled up and taken photos and documented some. He documented and took amazing photos of a guy, Sergeant Brian Alvarado, who passed away from the burn pits.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and this guy was one of the most hands-on, active people in the community, despite maybe being like 80 pounds and having to use one of those like just horrible. He couldn't speak. He'd had to use like these machines. It was really, really sad. But to see his dedication to others was like truly inspiring. And Estevan took an amazing shot of him. And when he passed, his wife reached out and was like, "Do you think we could see that or get in?" Estevan printed it real nice and gave it to the family, to Rocio and her daughter. So yeah, it was special. He's awesome.
Now, has Estevan ever photo documented you?
Yeah, he actually pulled up. So another initiative is Beverly Hills. And, you know, I've been investigating the officers and their racial profiling since 2016. When a gentleman who, by the way, the guy's dad was a police chief. He's definitely an officer. I think he said he was the chief, though. And, but anyways, he goes, "I live in Beverly Hills and I walk home with a slice of pizza in my mouth and they go, 'Prove you live here.' Where are you going? What are you doing?" Just for living in Beverly Hills. He's Black. That's unacceptable. And I started documenting, sharing, filming, getting other people to. And that's led to a $500 million class action lawsuit that, you know, Ben Crump and Bradley Gage are representing the victims of. And I mentioned that with Estevan because Estevan pulled up to the BHPD police department when they had a former Captain Scott Dowling. And a lot of this rodeo task force and targeting of every Black person that was on rodeo really seemed to be under his watch. And so I had a big sign that said, you know, "Fire Captain Scott Dowling." And he pulled up and documented and took some photos. And that captain's no longer there. So
I guess that's a pound,
that's
right?
a pound.
All right. So there's a long history of you with Beverly Hills. Anything you want to talk about, shine a light on?
It's just, it's despicable, I think, that a city for as much money, wealth, notoriety, look at all the, like the movies and the shows that mention that city, that they do and have racially profiled in the way that it's been documented for decades. Obviously, the videos I've received really, in my opinion, seem to prove it. You know, before an incident I had July of last year, I had been ticketed by that department for on my bike, jaywalking, in my car. I had never been put in handcuffs. I'd never been to the jail. But for some reason, if you were Black or brown, you were going to jail. You were being put in handcuffs. And for what? What threat are you just because of that? So yeah, and I have a recent case. You're representing me. I'm not sure what.
Yeah, I think I would.
Right. But
I mean, there's some highlights.
you could speak on whatever it is.
Well, that was interesting in 20 years of practice that they had the phone, they had Senate's phone, and we knew they were going to get a warrant. And I've never seen a judge deny an extraction search warrant for a phone. So we came up with this deal where we would let them download some video because there was sensitive attorney-client privileged information, and Senate is also a journalist, and we didn't want the cops and the government getting all that information. And that was related to that class action suit with Attorney Crump engaged.
Yeah,
There was stuff on there.
Yeah, I mean, I was subpoenaed in that lawsuit. I had this process server knocking on my door every other day trying to serve me papers for this. And yeah, ultimately what it said is please give all your communication regarding Beverly Hills Police and anything you've ever said to anybody, essentially, about us. And well, if anyone who knows the work I do, of course there's going to be sensitive content. Of course there's going to be sources. Of course there's going to be people sharing things that they would expect to be private given who I am and what I do. And so when they took my phone in this recent arrest, it was certainly concerning because, I mean, for any department to take any phone for whatever reasons that they can make up, it would be concerning, right? Like, why they have my personal property? What are they doing? This, that. But when my phone and the communication was specifically subpoenaed in this very public lawsuit, it seemed really strange. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess we went in there and they said, we want his last video in it. And so in front of them, and I wasn't going to give him the password, right? So I cover it, I unlock it. And then it was like, oh, go to your recently deleted. That was a whole thing. But I gave him the video. And I mean, you watched the video. I don't think the video showed me committing.
No laws were broken.
No laws were broken.
That was depicted in the video. But what was very interesting was we had two detectives and we cut this deal to prevent them from getting everything on your phone. So that's another Rosenberg checkpoint.
That is.
You know, and then when I got your phone back from the sheriff, I had to drive out to Whittier. It's a huge windowless building. And, you know, you just feel insignificant. But I also got your jacket back. Tell us about your protester jacket.
Shout out Philip from Hierarchy. Because he's who made it. You know, he made me this really nice bulletproof jacket that's got a little Mr. Checkpoint emblem logo stitched in. Hierarchy Company, bulletproof clothing. So yeah, he does this for, he makes it for all these different people. I would check him out. But yeah, he made me the custom one. And the cops kept it. The sheriffs kept it for, I guess, the same amount of time they had the phone.
Yeah.
That was one.
But I got it back for you.
You did?
When I touched it for the first time, I could feel Kevlar. And I was like, those streets are rough at these demonstrations.
from unfortunately from the cops, you know? That's not for any fear of the public. For me personally, it's like we saw during demonstrations, during peaceful demonstrations, police launching, you know, rubber bullets and tear gas and all these projectiles that end up, you know, hitting some kids in the or people in the private areas all over the face.
In the groin.
Yeah, I think one guy got it in the groin. I mean, these were like serious medical complications from the police. So yeah, that's why we need something like that.
Now, do you consider yourself a civil rights activist?
Could be, sure. I think, yeah.
Well, you've connected some very high profile families of people who have been killed by the police.
Yeah, that's true.
And you're the guy, when something like that happens, you're a lot of people's first thought. and you have a community that sends you videos. Can you describe that? Because it's unique,
Yeah.
your community.
I guess, and I don't mean to like downplay whatever like position or role I can play, but like I guess to say, oh, this is what I am feels sometimes weird. But I mean, yeah, people have gone to me that the family of Valentina Oriana Peralta, the family of Ryan Gaynor. There's and then there's all of these cases where it could be something maybe less significant, but yeah, it's unfortunate because when I'm told people always film the police, I didn't intend or realize that the result would be to not just you get the videos of other people, right? Oh, thanks for reminding me. Thanks for telling me to film. This is what just happened. I never thought this would happen to me. I've seen your videos. I've watched your stuff for a year, 2 years, 3 years. I can't believe I need to ask you for help. Can you even, this is the video. And that could, like I said, be from them losing their child, losing a parent, getting assaulted, kidnapped, all the different things. And so, yeah, we then, we do whatever the family or victim wants in terms of what's best. Sometimes they may already have a lawyer and go, can you share this? Can you connect us here? Can you help us with hoodies with our loved one on it? Can you make us pins? Can you, can you share who our loved one is? The police are saying that our 15-year-old kid is a criminal. He's never done something bad ever. Can you humanize him? Can you tell the world like this is what he loved? Can you tell the world Valentina loved In-N-Out and M&M's and Ozzy Osbourne? Do they just have to know, about this tragic killing? And so these are the things we do. And we've been with families since the day getting the call till now. I stay in touch with Valentina's family regularly. I try to do whatever I can for really anyone impacted by these issues. There's only so much we can do. I mean, AFTP, this foundation, we're small. We're like microscopic in the scheme of foundations and work and what you see. We do a lot of good work. We're really out there. But in terms of like the bandwidth and our ability to take on significantly more is challenging. But it is necessary because people are impacted by this issue every day.
Can you describe for the folks the Valentina case? Because some people might not know what you're referring to.
Yeah. Valentina, she's a 14-year-old girl. She was with her mother in the Burlington Coat Factory in North Hollywood the day before Christmas Eve 3 years ago. So I want to say 2022. Could have been 2021. I'd have to check. But she basically, there was a man in the Burlington store and he was having a mental health crisis. It's seen on security footage. It's obvious he's definitely struggling and having a tough time. And in my opinion, security probably could have and should have had him removed, or he even like walked out at one time. They could have locked the door. Anyways, he comes back in, and at that time he uses a bike lock and he ends up assaulting some woman. And had blood, there was blood. There was no gun. There was no one's armed, but he did hit a woman with a bike lock. And what you have from looking at body cam footage that went public is Officer William Dorsey Jones, who is like running full speed past all the other officers. He's got like an AR-15 looking like gun, And even like some officers are like, slow up. It's like he's running past everybody. He wants to be there first. And he is. He gets there first. And the second he hits the corner, what do you see? You see the victim nearly at his feet, maybe inches from his feet. And then you see the man having the mental health crisis, Daniel Elena Lopez, having the mental health crisis at the end of the aisle. It's like an aisle at the store. And he just shoots 3 bullets, which were totally unnecessary. Even Chief Michael Moore said all 3 shots were against policy, were not necessary. And unfortunately, he died. And then a bullet I guess goes through the wall or ricochets, but ends up hitting Valentina. Valentina was in the dressing room with her mom, and they were praying. They were kind of like huddled up like this, from what they tell me, is like, and praying that, you know, whatever they're hearing in the background, you know, ends, and just, and and what happened is the mother, I mean, she then had her daughter. It was like an explosion with that kind of bullet. So I think she was like on her back. But when she gets up and sees, I mean, I'm apparently, if aid had been rendered and calls would have been made, it's possible Valentina's life could have been saved. But I believe that the negligence and lack of action by LAPD, even after doing that, was so egregious and even more responsible for her death. And it's a tragic one.
How did you get in contact with the family?
It was through, you know, that's kind of what happens is like when these things happen, they reach out, or like a mutual friend reaches out and goes, hey, you know, this family is looking for help, or this family wants to reach out or connect with you. And that's, I don't recall specifically. I think it was one of the cousins that reached out initially. And just, yeah, I remember being on the phone with them Christmas, and it was like the most awful call with them.
So this was the next day?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
It was horrible. I mean, like you could hear, well, so there was a translator, and as they're communicating, like just, you could just hear the parents just yelling, not at anyone, but just, you know, like needing to express.
Frustrated.
Oh, yeah.
Crying out.
Or exactly, like crying. Yeah.
So for those who don't know, how big is your social media following?
I would say it's like 700,000+ followers on the various platforms, from YouTube, TikTok, Twitter or X, Instagram. Instagram, we have the biggest following, I would say. Mr. Checkpoint. We also have Always Film the Police. We also have the account Always for the People. So those are the accounts where we try to share, give updates.
Now, when you go around the city of LA, by the way, LA native?
Yeah.
And what high school?
818. Went to Montclair Prep.
Right. Okay.
Little school in Van Nuys.
Yeah. With all the heavy hitters, right?
It's an interesting one.
That's hilarious. And just so people know, what are these addresses, or what are your Insta handles?
At Mr. Checkpoint with an underscore on Instagram. At Mr. Checkpoint on YouTube. Oh, I'm on Substack. I'm doing a lot of, I used to be on Patreon. I send the DUI Checkpoint text messages and emails. So every weekend you can get the alerts, the info. We have that system on Substack now. So you can search Mr. Checkpoint, Twitter or X, Mr. Checkpoint. Pretty much all of them, Mr. Checkpoint. I think Instagram's the only one with an underscore at the end.
And what year was Checkpoint founded?
2011.
Wow. So that's 14 years.
Wow, that's crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell us about when you got pulled over for a DUI in San Diego?
Yeah. And I think that moment is what like was the next evolution of Mr. Checkpoint. So I think like Mr. Checkpoint for 2011 to 2013, I want to say, is like DUI checkpoints, you know, and I was sharing Uber and Lyft, you know, don't drink and drive. I'm against people driving under the influence. I'm for people being responsible, but I also don't think these are constitutional. So that's all happening. And then in 2013, I'm pulled over in Santa Monica.
Oh, Santa Monica.
Yeah. I had dinner with my parents, traveling to a friend's. And that's when an officer, Kobe Arnold, pulls me over, motorcycle cop. I basically made a right on a red. It said no right on red. So pulls me over and he says, pretty quickly, he says, you know, are you drinking? No. on drugs? I said, no. And then he says, okay, follow my finger. And I say, no.
This one.
Yeah. So field sobriety test, these is like follow. Well, that's what he starts with, follow the finger. And I know, being from the family of lawyers, that in California, right, we have a legal right to refuse follow the finger, walk the line, alphabet backwards. So I was always told, refuse these, right? Never do them. So when he says do it, I was like, no question, no. He didn't like that. He said, I'm going to take you to jail for DUI. And that's what he did. He ended up finding a prescription bottle in my car full of pills. So he goes, oh, I think he's on these pills. So it didn't even say DUI it didn't say drunk driving in the report. It said, I think he's on the pills. And they took my blood. And because I thought I was going to blow and go home.
Right.
I thought this won't be too long. But no, it was blood. Then you wait 3 months. So I got out of jail the next day and then got my car back. Actually, my dogs were in the car, so they went to the pound. I had to get them. And then 3 months later, blood results come back, shows I'm sober, clean. And so I hired a civil rights attorney to sue the Santa Monica Police Department. I won a $70,000 settlement. But the reason I say the next evolution is because I shared the audio on YouTube. You can listen to it if you go to Bad Cop Arrest Sober Driver. It has like 6 million views or more, something like that. But it had a lot of views fast. And the number one.
So you were saying sober driver, bad cop, or bad cop, sober driver?
Bad Cop Sober Driver is the title. Okay. But the comments, the reason I tell people to always film the police, because before that video, anytime I saw the cops, I would film all the time, anytime. I could be with my family, my parents, anybody. If I see cops, I'm going to film. They're like, what are you doing? I didn't actually even always know why. I'm just like, you don't know what they're going to do. I want to film. But the stop in Santa Monica, when I put on YouTube, the number one comment is, this happened to me. So my response is simply, do you have footage? And then the response always was no. And that's what made me say, instead of the original F the police, we need to always film the police. And that's where we are now.
Right. Now, when that happened, describe for everyone exactly what you did with your phone.
Oh, yeah. Well, I always keep my phone on lock, so you can't get in unless you do a numerical passcode. I don't do the face recognition, and I don't do fingerprint, because whether they legally or illegally get a warrant, they could force you. Cops do what they want. So from the lock screen, you basically swipe right, and now you're in your video format. And then I hit video, and I hit record, and then I put the phone down on my. You could put it there. Yeah, there's that spot in between the shoulder rest and the seatbelt. You can kind of jam it in there. That's a good spot. But I actually just put it here. Some people put it in the cup holder.
Right.
That's not going to be the biggest deal. The biggest deal is you're getting the video, and then let's just pretend they arrest you and they see this. Oh my God, this guy's filming, and they end the video. And then they go here and they delete the video. Delete. This will still, if you have an iPhone now, if you have an Android, I'm sorry, because this is different. But I believe it has similar function. It will be in an archive folder. If you go to your photos, you could find archived, recently deleted. It will be there, and you can only access that with your passcode.
I see.
So even if the cops get it, they delete it, you'll still have it. That's how I do it. I record. I don't tell them I'm recording. They're public servants. You're a private citizen. So if it's you and me, I have to tell you, hey, buddy, I'm recording, right? But not when it's a cop, not when it's a public servant. You do not have to tell them. I've never gotten in trouble for filming a cop without telling them. I've uploaded videos of calling departments, talking to officers in the police station, outside. I've never been told it's an issue, and I don't believe it is.
Now, you have a lot of supporters, and a lot of people love you. Let's just say it like that. But you also have some haters.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that there's certainly a lot of people who, there's people who don't like what I do. I find most people who don't like what I do are on the wrong side of the issue I'm talking about. But when I've had convos with people, they typically say, we respect what you do, man. Maybe not everything, maybe not this, like, but they know the essence is real. They know, like, if I'm speaking on something, someone's being done wrong. Now, you might be the person I'm speaking that you're doing someone wrong. Maybe it's your job and you're in the middle, or you think because I have a sign and a megaphone, it's too loud, not here, not now. Everyone's got that. I've shown up at so many places where it's never the right time. Okay. The people that are experiencing it in real time never feel it's the right time for a megaphone and a sign. They always think there's another issue you should be at. They always think you should have something better else to do. This is like guaranteed. But I know why I'm there. And yeah, there's real haters. There's real people who want harm to me. There's people who've posted my photos and said that are friends of cops, Beverly Hills in particular, and said, if you see this guy, throw eggs at him and show my photo. That's dangerous. You know, that's beyond someone saying, I'm going to do something to you. That's inciting violence to me, to people I could never even know who it is.
Right.
And I've experienced that. I've experienced people in person saying foul stuff to me, but that's okay. I know why I do what I do.
Sounds fun, right?
It does.
Yeah. Do you ride, by the way?
No.
Yeah, I ride.
You do?
I ride. Yeah, I have a Ducati. But anyway.
We got to do that.
Yeah. So sometimes the work is difficult.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? Because you give a lot of yourself. How do you keep going?
It's tough. I think the only reason I keep going is because people reach out and I see stuff wrong. You know, there's no other reason. I mean, I think I'm thankful for like healthy habits in my life. You know, I do try to meditate, yoga, have like a healthy diet. I try to hike and be in nature. I think marijuana is a sacred plant that can help. But overall, I think, how do you keep going? Or it's kind of just the issues I'm dealing with are so serious, and like, there's nothing I don't deal with that couldn't just bring me to tears in a second because of how sensitive, and like, I guess I have a tough time not feeling like this could be my brother, this could be my mom, this could be a child I don't even have, but like I really like an empath, right? I really like feel that, and just to not do something doesn't even feel like an option. Regarding Valentina's family, you know, I never had a feeling like this in my body. I've done ayahuasca, I've done plant medicines, all this stuff. I've never had a feeling in my body than being in a room with parents looking at their daughter who's been killed by police. And for the first time, and they hadn't been able to see even her deceased body for insane amount of time because of nonsense and bullshit and reasons that the police or this, you know, need to do whatever. Being in a room with those parents, looking at that, I could feel my heartbeat through my toes. Like, it's such serious and real work, and I just couldn't imagine doing anything else but trying to support people in these situations.
How do police officers react when they see you coming?
Depends what they're doing. You know, I have been at Coachella, for example, and like walking out of there or whatever, and cops be like, hey, can we take a photo? You know, I've had cops say that. There are cops, I'll say this, that reach out and share information that has allowed me to share and document and put on blast, let's say, some of these serious issues that we're seeing. There's officers who reach out and say, I'm being victim of the racial discrimination or the problems in the department. So I'm a resource, definitely. I listen to officers at different departments who share, because why would I not? If you intend and want good, which I do believe there are some officers who want that. I won't say that every officer wants bad. I think their uniform, in my opinion, doesn't allow them to ultimately carry out the good they maybe intend, but I believe some intend to. And so if I can be an ear for some of these people, I'm down. In terms of cops harassing it or targeting people, maybe they have 8, 6, 10 kids lined up on a wall. No, those cops, when they see me, they want to end. They want to be gone. Typically I see everyone's handcuffs coming off pretty fast.
Wow.
I see, and which is unbelievable. That shouldn't happen. Shouldn't be because I'm here with a camera, his handcuffs come off. That's again ridiculous. And so yeah, I've had all of the reactions, and I understand. I could imagine you're a cop having an officer doing something you shouldn't be. You don't want to see me, but
Last guy I want to see.
right.
Have you ever filed a formal complaint against a California peace officer?
Yeah, probably dozens of times. Most times they're unfounded. So when you file a complaint on a police department, which I've done dozens of times, the response is supposed to come back within 1 year. In Beverly Hills, I will say, except for a few complaints, most I think have come back within the year. However, they have 4 responses. I think it'll say sustained, right? You said this happened and it did. They'll say unfounded. Basically, you're saying this happened and we can't prove it either way. They'll say exonerated. This happened, but it didn't break it didn't break a problem. And the 4th is, I believe there's a 4th. Most come back unfounded or exonerated, that nothing was done wrong. I have had many sustained that say the complaint you said happened did occur. And typically that means there's supposed to be some type of accountability on their end. But as filing the complaint, you're never going to know what that is. But yeah, I'd encourage everybody to file complaints on officers who do wrong. You're a criminal defense attorney, right? So how does those complaints work when you file? Right. Do they?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, but I'll ask a question and then answer it with you. So what happens when a citizen files a complaint against a peace officer is it goes into their personnel file, and that is discoverable to a defense attorney in the future who's dealing with that officer. Now, that motion is called a pitches motion, and I file these regularly, and we're going to get to the big case because we're getting close.
Oh, I see.
But so what happens is if the judge grants the motion, then the judge goes into the back and opens up the personnel file with the custodian of records from the police department. Now, whatever names are in there, they can give those names to the defense lawyer and call them at trial to impeach the officer. So that's where those papers end up. We call that a pitches. So you are what we would call a pitches witness.
Yeah, I think we all need to be doing more of those because the departments do use that as a metric. I've seen departments be like, oh, we only had this many sustained complaints or this or that. So we definitely need to be, as a community, as people, as the public, filing more of those.
Now, you and I worked together on a case, a big case, Eden, Alex, and now Murado. And I'm just going to ask you, tell me about your journalistic role in that case.
It was heavy. It was something, I don't think I had something I'd ever experienced before regarding any issue. I think the fact that there was 8 people involved, when you have one person involved, you might have 4, like let's say 3 to 4 people minimum who are around or care or like have questions, right? It could be the significant other, a kid, it could be parent, it could be sibling, a best friend, right? Like your other advocate buddies. So in this, and then there was such a big community with this case that like it had just so many people reaching out, sharing info, asking questions. It was a lot, and it was a handful of people. Honestly, almost I think I could say from every person involved. I want to say each person involved to some degree. I had contact with someone about something, and some of them was like a ton of people. And there was like group chats, as you are aware of. There was all of this talk, and so people were coming to me, as I said, with questions, but also like, hey, here's these videos, here's these convos. Whatever was mentioned pretty much in that court case, it felt like I was getting sent it. I can't confirm, right?
No.
Because I don't know.
You had the videos I had that I got.
Right. Yeah. So it was a lot of stuff. It was a lot of passion, a lot of energy, a lot of opinions, a lot of people wanting, some people like kind of coalition on the same side, some people not. So it was really challenging, and I just found it important to focus. You know, when you're focused on the goal, I think all the drama and the noise dissipates. Like, what's the goal? They get out. You know, what's the goal? Who's whatever that is. So I don't know. I stayed focused, but it was a lot going on.
So we're talking about the Justice 8 case from Victorville. I think, was I on it for, I think I was on that case for 8 months, December through June. It seems like longer. But street vendor activist and political activist Eden Alex Enamorado. So after I would go to, and you went to almost every court date, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah. So after court, what we would do is I would do a community update, and then Senate would post it to reach the larger community. And I think we did some good work with that.
Yeah, I think I mean, look, people tell us, I think when we've even been together sometimes in the public or whatever, but I think a lot of people were watching and were getting informed of what was going on. I think breaking down all the legal jargon as you did was fascinating even to me. And I think others definitely appreciated it. Yeah. And then I did the pitches motion.
Right. I was just going to say, tell me about Karen and Kyle.
Yeah. Well, it appeared that there was just, two individuals that the court, did bring up to some degree that there was informants. And based on the information, I believed I had found who these two possible informants were, and that seemed to kind of be the instigators in many ways of a lot of this stuff. And so, yeah, I compiled a bunch of dates, videos, info, and put together a document that I hoped, what didn't make sense to me is here you kind of randomly pick 8 people, but here I identify 2 people that have in many ways much more to do with than some of those other 8 at least. And so for them to have not been included seemed strange, among other things.
So just to clarify, Officer Duran was asked by my colleague Christian Contreras, who ended up representing Wendy, and he said, were there informants in the case? And Duran said no. So legally, anytime we ask a question like that, the DA should object, privileged investigation, evidence code 1040 and 1043. But he didn't. So the answer stood. So what I was doing, based upon your work, was doing a pitches motion on all of our cops because he said no. And then you, in my opinion, established on information and belief that there were informants. Right. So I took that declaration from my investigative journalist and I put it in a motion to get the personnel files. And what happened with that motion?
I think it was rejected.
Right. It was denied. And I did a big post with you about how low the burden is that I have to meet and what BS that ruling was.
Right.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you this. How can people out there, how can the community get involved in the work that you're doing?
I think it's reach out, share the videos. I think pay attention, like the messages I'm saying, right? I'm saying like film police. So if you're out, you see police, film the police. I talk about jury duty. So if you see a jury duty summons, that's your time, right? It's not like you get the thing in the mail and all of a sudden. No, it's like pay attention and then start taking steps and action to make that change.
Why is it important that your community actually serves on a jury?
Well, because that's your fate. Just simply put, look at ASAP Rocky case just recently. I know you were there.
I was there almost every day.
Every day, right? So sometimes it might be hard to think about other scenarios, but ASAP Rocky, he's either doing 20 plus years in prison or he's walking out the door with his family. It's one or the other. And it's only decision is made by the 12 people in the room. So to be that 12 is everything. And it's someone in your community. If you're ASAP Rocky or you're anybody facing any conviction, you want someone who looks like you, maybe from where you're from, in that courtroom. And so, or in that jury. And so it's everything. And we need to really sit in those seats. And instead of it being an older, whiter, maybe like more privileged person, the demographic could be more representing of the community that the trial is taking place in.
Any final thoughts that you'd like people to remember? Sometimes we call them gems.
The final gems?
You've dropped a lot of gems.
I did?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I got a final gem for you. Well, we have a First Amendment right to always film the police, a Fourth Amendment right to always refuse searches, a Fifth Amendment right, and we say, I have no statement. I want my lawyer, per our Sixth Amendment right, and shout out Attorney Rosenberg.
All righty. All right, guys, Punching Back Podcast. Nicholas Rosenberg, we're out. Punching back.